Kling, he was talking about comparisons with Brian Cody, or he was certainly asked them about them. He didn't bring it up.
He definitely wasn't bringing it up anyway.
No, he says, being the first man in after Cody, and this is obviously like David Moyes coming in after Alex Ferguson. I suppose people are still trying to replace Sean Boylan and Meath, that sort of type of thing, coming in after the great man. And he goes, no, that didn't even enter my mind at all. That doesn't bother me. Like, I don't wake up every day comparing myself to anybody else. I'm privileged to get the job, but I'm determined to just get working on it and put my own stamp on it. The expectations are always there with Kilkenny, and that's to be as successful as you can possibly be, winning All-Irelands. That's no different for me. That's fine. I've no issue with that. It's something that we're working towards every week, and for me, at the minute, it's about taking it on a week-by-week basis and looking forward to the games that are coming ahead. We've a big one this weekend. That's going to be against Tipperary. But, like, he doesn't shy away from the fact that the expectation is All-Irelands, and that's what he's pursuing, which I like to hear.
Yeah, I don't think anything else would be acceptable to be said, like, oh, we're in a 3-year program here, you know, come back to me in 2025 and we'll try and win All-Ireland. Do you know what I mean? I just don't think, I think you kind of, it's like Pat Ryan in Cork. I think you have to put that out there. You have to show that ambition. You don't have to talk about it every time you do an interview or say that every time, right, like that, but you probably put it on the record. Interesting, my Irish Independent colleague Donica Boyle was down there, and it was funny. You've been down in the what would you call it? You know, the area at the end in Nolan Park where they do a lot of the media briefings. Well, it's like the clubhouse. Sorry, the clubhouse, and there's a big. It's funny. Derek Ling was sitting there doing his interview, just like you're sitting there, and there's this big 10-foot, like nearly like a mural of Brian Cody just like looming over him. Like he's always there. He's probably always going to be there. I think it'll be interesting, like whether like Cody will be at the matches. Like he's an avid hurling man, but like, or will he stay away for a while and not?
Does he watch the show?
That's a fair question now. But it'd be interesting to see.
Comment in if you do, Brian.
Yeah. Bob won't know, but I'd say. But it'd be interesting to see whether he go to the games or like would he want to be a distraction, because he would be a bit of a distraction. Do you know what I mean? But it'd be interesting to see whether he's going to be at, especially like this weekend to be the first one really. Like would he be in Nolan Park at a Kilkenny?
Would he be a distraction though? Like if Derek Ling turns out to be a bad manager, and there's no suggestion that he will be, then I think it would be a distraction in the crowd. Like, do you know the way they constantly show Alex Ferguson in the crowd, on TV? Yeah. But they even do that now when Eric Ten Hag is doing pretty well. You know, obviously the last couple of games haven't gone well, but you know, it's a problem when the team isn't going well. But otherwise, it's like, look at him coming in here, delighted watching how well Ling is doing.
Do you remember, that picture of Cody, the smiling one? He's like, really? No, remember the time, was it not Ireland semi-final where some fella was driving with a load of big hay bales on the motorway and it hit and all there was bales all over the motorway and there was carnage. That was Limerick and Waterford on Ireland semi-final 2021.
It held me up. I was coming up from Cork that day.
And it was just like, who is the culprit or who is the farmer driving? It's just that picture of Cody kind of smiling and smirking. But I'd say he probably will be at the games, to be honest with you, because just he knows nothing else. And I'm sure he'd take as much of an interest in the new Kilkenny regime as anybody else would.
Yeah, and like last week, Kilkenny weren't, they didn't blow Antrim away or anything like it. It was 1-18 to 15 points, so 6 points in it for a finish. Billy Drennan scored 1-8, 1-1 of that from play. I think they went ahead early on, had a nice little lead early on, but for the rest of the game, I think it was pretty much nip and tuck for the most part. So Antrim will be pleased enough with that. But Kilkenny, they had a nice few sort of names that we're very familiar with playing. So Mikey Butler was cornerback, Hugh Lawler was fullback, Killian Buckley and Pádraig Walsh and David Blanchfield were the half back line. Paddy Deegan and John Donnelly were named midfield. Wally Walsh, Keane Kennedy, Martin Mossy-Keown is in there, Billy Ryan. So it's not like it was an inexperienced team with like 8 new lads that we've never heard of before. Now the Ballyhale lads will obviously come back in dribs and drabs here. But, what do you expect this weekend against Tipperary? It's a pretty new look Tipperary in terms of like there's 4 or 5 names either starting that weren't starting before or starting in completely different positions. Like put it this way, I think compared to last year, we were saying on Tuesday's show that only 3 players remained from Tipperary's team that played Laois in the opener last year, and 2 of those were in different positions. So it's probably more of a new look Tipperary team than it is Kilkenny team.
Yeah, there's a couple of new Kilkenny faces, the likes of Billy Drennan and Paul Cody, who I think played last night in the Fitzgibbon Cup as well. But generally, I think as a manager, Derek Ling is coming in. He wants to give a few lads their head, but he also wants to win games. So it's a bit of a balancing act between maybe one lad in each line, shall we say, if you get me, and having two experienced lads with them, but you want to win games. I think this is the first big test for Tipperary or Kilkenny this weekend, and neither are going to want to lose. Like, Tip are just not going to want to lose Kilkenny, and vice versa. Just think from Tip's point of view, I was kind of thinking about it a bit more after. Like, could you have a better person to take you off the floor than Liam Cahill? No, genuine, and I mean this genuinely. When he came in, I just kind of comparing Pádraig Fanning's year with Waterford in 2019. He gave a lot of lads their head. New fellas, Prunty, Caleb Lyons, whatever, all these lads didn't go too well. But when Cahill came in 2020, then all these lads had a year of inter-county championship hurling under their belt, and he was able to get a bounce off them straight away. Last year, it was kind of the same with Bonner. A lot of new lads in, maybe hadn't started the championship before. I'm thinking even of like Craig Morgan, who's obviously not involved at the moment, but there's plenty of other names there as well. Connor Stakelin be another one. You know, Cahill's coming in now. Tipper, you know, really bad Munster campaign last year. He's already got a bounce off them, like he's already got out of Waterford in the early stages of 2020. And his print is clearly on things. So he's clearly a very good manager at, you know, performing this resurrection almost and changing fortunes quite quickly and changing a mood in a county quite quickly too, I'd say.
Yeah, well, like, it's not just one bad year for Tipperary. We're talking about 3 bad years for Tipperary in a row at this stage. And you know that I felt that there's no reason that Tipperary shouldn't be competing. And I'm not saying that they beat Limerick, nothing like it at the moment, but there's no reason any other team should be particularly dismissing Tipperary in the last couple of years. But, you know, here's where we are. Yesterday, I was talking with Shane Brophy on Tipcast a little bit about Tipperary playing the modern game. So I'll play a clip from that. And I was wearing the same jumper yesterday. Playing the modern game, running the ball through the lines, going in threes like you had mentioned earlier. We saw hints of that last year when Tipperary played the first few games against Laois in those monsoon conditions, and then against Kilkenny in what was a fairly horrible game to watch down in Thurles. Remember, we were all fairly. It was a septic show for both teams, really. There's no sense that this is going to stop mid-flow like it did with Tip last year. This is the way Liam Cahill and Michael Beavens play. So there's going to be just more and more of this. And to be fair, across the board, like, for example, watching the Wexford-Galway game over the weekend, that's all they're at as well. So this is the modern game, and it's not always going to be that exciting, actually.
No, it's not. I was actually sitting beside your or being Colin Michael Verney for the match on Saturday, and I'm not a fan of modern hurling. I lament maybe. I'd love for the day to see a big full back coming out of the ball and leaving the ball around 100 yards down the field, and the roar of the crowds. Like, there's okay, while we got great maybe excitement in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the Cork Limerick game on Saturday night, maybe when guys are getting tired and maybe there's more mistakes coming, you get exciting hurling. But there's no doubt about it, while probably the level of skill and precision and scoring rates and everything in hurling has shot up, probably it's never been more skillful. I do think the level of excitement has been lost from the game, the modern game. I don't know if you would agree. Like, I don't think we don't get the same maybe one-on-one confrontations for the ball maybe that generated some great excitement over the years.
Yeah, so like
I thought you were playing a clip of yourself talking for the first 30 seconds there.
No. Well, like, do you remember last year when Tipperary played played Kilkenny down in Semple Stadium? It was both teams were trying to move it through the lines, and it was
awful.
Horrific
very
game
bad,
to watch.
yeah,
like
very bad.
118 to 117 to Tipperary, something like that. Like you couldn't see either team doing much that season. Obviously, Tipperary went on and did nothing. Kilkenny got to an All-Ireland final, to be fair. But I'd expect a much higher quality match this time around. And I'd expect a fairly good atmosphere in Nolan Park.
Yeah, I have to say, Shane, like, you talk about like whether you can see a manager or a coach's prints, how quickly can you see them? Like, be straight with Cork, haven't really seen it with Pat Ryan yet. And he said maybe there's reasons for that and they haven't worked on too much yet. With Cahill and Bevins, it's like to see it like that straight away. Like, that's why, you know, chatting John Milan a few times, he was at some Waterford training sessions that Bevins took, you know, at the start of 2020, I think. And it's just like everything is with, you know, a man running beside you. Everything is to do with support play. Everything is to do with overlaps and whatever. And you can see it in Tipperary's style already. It's not going to be perfect. Far from it. It's not going to be perfect straight away. But you can see clearly that they already look like a different animal compared to last year. And from a Tip point of view, you'd have to say that's hugely encouraging. That doesn't mean they're going to win All-Ireland this year, but it means it means that all you can ask for is that a county or a squad maxes out to their potential. If the potential of a squad is to get to a Leinster final, brilliant. If the potential of a squad is to survive in the Leinster Championship, brilliant. If it's to win an All-Ireland, better again. But just that whatever you have, the resources you have before you, that you max out and get the most out of them. And to me, Cahill's style, the question would still be whether the players are exactly there to play the style he wants to play, and whether that athleticism is there. There's still a small question mark about that, but there can be no question mark about the way they're playing and what they're trying to do. It's clearly defined, and it's very, very obvious what he wants them to do, and they definitely look to be trying to play to that system as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, he's doing it with so many players unavailable. I mean, Dylan Quirk, of course, passed away, sadly, but like, he would have been brilliant for this style of play, as would Craig Morgan with Cruciate, Barry Heffernan, Cruciate, and Jared Brown, who's now out for the season as well. Like, he's lightning. And I know he was played more as an inside forward earlier in the year, but he is a big loss whether you played him out the field or closer inside. But Tip, like, the one thing I'd ask you, are they, like, I was noticing about Kilkenny that physically they looked so primed during their Walsh Cup games earlier this year. They looked very beefed up. We would have said that Tipperary last year, there was a bit of an athleticism or S&C deficit compared with other teams. But to me, now, you were up close and personal. You would have seen it better than I did. Did they look that bit more conditioned this year? I would have thought so.
They did, yeah. No, they did, in fairness. And I don't know if that's to do with tighter jerseys or whatever. I don't know. But they definitely looked more honed than last year. You always trust your eye, what you can see. Do you know what I mean? You usually know. I follow the racing very closely, but I wouldn't be able to, tell you a horse is coming to peak fitness. Whereas I think with a hurler, you'd have a far greater idea. And it definitely looked like different kind of beasts, I would say, compared to last year. I thought that was obvious. Speaking of beasts, I was only looking at the Cork Limerick game. Like, who'd win a muscles battle between Sean O'Donoghue and Sean Finn?
Can we organise it?
Sean O'Donoghue, I said, we talked about the pair of Sean O'Donoghues on him before. He came off injured the other day. I think he got a dead leg. He's literally bursting out through that jersey. He's an absolute tank. And we've seen Finn without the jersey on. Like, that'll go down as one of the most famous pictures ever in the history of the GAA, I'd say.
Have you that picture hanging up on the wall? I'd say you do at this stage. You're admiring it so much. In terms of Cody, isn't Cody the village manager? I'd say he'd be there watching them boys. Richard Hogan, he might stay away on Sunday. First big game at Nolan Park. Cody's shadow could loom large over the occasion. Don't need distractions against Tip. Brian Cody himself, it seems.
Well, fair play to whoever put that together. But I don't know if it's Rocky, obviously, and whose head is on it? It's not Rocky's head on it, though, is it? I don't think
it doesn't look like Cody's head either. It could potentially be his head. It's very hard to make out.
Henry Shefflin's, no?
Yeah, I'll be there, lads. Anyway, says Brian Cody official. I'm expecting the Tip Kilkenny game to turn into a different beast within the first 10 minutes. It's undoubtedly will with Limerick versus Clare, says TV Street. Cody won't even consider that, says Adrian McGrath, in terms of, I presume what you're saying is he'll be showing up and he couldn't give it, couldn't care less either way. I was at that game in Semple last year. Ray O'Dwyer says the style of hurling was shocking bad. Will Cahill's style be better? I would imagine. So, our Tip on the way back, lads, or how far off are we? We're back, Led Zeppelin. Don't worry, we are back. Destroyed. Now that's harsh. What was I referring to when I said destroyed?
Can't remember. It could have been something I said, to be honest with you. I can't remember.
It's a Donald Trump head. It's a Donald Trump head. Okay.
Very good. Okay.
It's going to be good. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. So that's going to be the Tip Kilkenny this weekend. Looking forward to that match. I actually think it's going to be a bit of a humdinger.
It's a great weekend. It's a great weekend, the league hurling, Shane. There's at least 3 to 4, particularly Division 1 games that you're really looking forward to, regardless of whether it's shadow boxing or whatever. History would suggest that particularly Limerick Clare, Tip Kilkenny and Galway Cork will all be intriguing games.